Animal adaptations is the subject of this show, and it's amazing what they get up to. Some use the force of gravity to get a meal. Others make use of us. These insects have adapted to one of the most hostile environments on Earth. While this little fellow has a special finger he uses for scooping out insects. There's some creatures that only dine at the highest levels, and others who are more down to earth. And our cameraman has to do a little adapting himself as he goes filming in South Africa. We start, though, with animals that have evolved a variety of strategies to cope with the desert.
All creatures that survive in the desert have made a series of vital adaptations to the heat, the dryness, and the shortage of food. They must, however, get water from somewhere, and darkling beetles have devised an ingenious method of doing this. They simply stand on top of a sand dune and allow the early morning water vapor in the air to condense as droplets onto their backs. A useful desert adaptation is to scavenge, feeding on anything that's succumbed to the desert heat. Many creatures do this, among them white-necked ravens. But in the skies above the ravens is one of the world's best adapted desert scavengers, the lammergeier, a member of the vulture family. It's found in Asia, Eastern Europe, and Africa, and is one of the world's highest flying and swiftest birds. Like the ravens, it's a carrion eater, feeding on dead animals. But when the carcass has been picked clean and there's nothing left for the ravens, the lammergeier can still get nourishment from it. And it does this by eating the bones. It has a stomach like an acid bath and can swallow and digest a lamb's leg bone. But if the bone is too big, or the lammergeier is still young, like this one with its dark neck feathers, it needs to break the bone. And for this, it's devised a unique method. Having found a bone that's too large to swallow, the youngster takes off, clasping it in its beak. The young bird's parents, with their yellow neck feathers, keep an eye on their inexperienced youngster. Lammergeiers can fly at 8,000 meters, but from a height of 60 meters, the youngster chooses a spot above a slab of rock and releases the bone. The lammergeier has somehow learned that if it drops a bone on a rock, the bone will shatter. This time it misses, but the bone is weakened. All the lammergeiers keep a keen watch on the falling bone. If it does break, they'll alight beside it within a few seconds. In fact, they can dive downwards at speeds of up to 130 kilometers an hour. With its parents still watching, the youngster tries again. And this time, it works. The youngster's the first there and gets his meal of some tasty bone marrow. And he keeps a sharp lookout in case another bird tries to steal it from him. The lammergeier fascinated the ancient Greeks and Romans. The Roman historian Pliny gave one of the first descriptions of its bone-breaking behavior. According to him, the playwright Aeschylus was killed by a bone dropped by a lammergeier. It mistook his bald head for a rock.
Did you know that scorpions are also highly adapted desert creatures? Their waxy skin covering means that even in extreme conditions, their bodies lose almost no water. In comparison, we humans would lose almost 1,000 times more. And did you know that some reptiles are capable of freezing solid in the winter months, then thawing out completely unharmed in the spring? Among these are box and painted turtles, and the garter snake. To survive in the lake where these waters originate requires special adaptive powers. To find out what might live there, take California's Highway 395, east of Yosemite National Park in California.
Ever since 1941, the city of Los Angeles has been diverting water from Mono Lake, the oldest lake in North America. That consumption has reduced the size of the lake by half and doubled its salinity, so that it's now 2 or 3 times more salty than the sea. Columns of calcium carbonate called tufa, which build up around springs in the floor of the lake, now rise 10 meters into the air. It looks about as lifeless as the Dead Sea. But this 700,000-year-old lake actually supports an amazing amount of life. Trillions of specialized brine flies, which feed on microscopic algae, have rapidly adapted to these hostile, briny waters. Similar numbers of brine shrimp fill the shallows, also feeding on the algae. But it's these huge swarms of protein, the flies, that attract hundreds of thousands of migratory birds. Among them, California gulls, which come here to feed, mate, and nest. There are at least 80 species of bird that call Lake Mono their home. And when it comes to California's seagulls, it's estimated that 85% of them begin their life right here, feeding on the flies that carpet the lake shore like a golden dust. "20 years of court challenges, right up to the Supreme Court, have finally stopped the lake being used as a reservoir. And the water is once again slowly rising. That means yet more adaptations face all these creatures as its salt level falls again. But now a South American beauty who has so many unusual adaptations that for years scientists couldn't agree exactly what it was. A cow or a cuckoo?
The hoatzin, the national bird of Guyana, is the only bird that has an extra stomach for fermentation, just like a cow. And in that stomach, as in a cow's, there are bacteria to help it digest cellulose, because it only eats leaves, another unique specialization. It's also known as the stink bird, because of the odor it gives off to scare away predators. Its chicks are fed on a regurgitated mush of partly digested leaves, and they too have a unique adaptation. Although they have strong claws on their feet, they also have small claws on their wings. They're an added help in balancing and climbing about the trees. But as the bird grows up, the claws reduce in size and in some cases drop off entirely. It was only when the scientists got round to looking at the Hotzin's genetic code that the riddle was answered. From what family did it come? The pheasant? Chicken? Cuckoo? When the sequencing was analysed, it turned out to be related to the cuckoo. The adults can fly, but after about 100 metres they run out of steam and crash land. They actually prefer to climb about in the trees, which is what this youngster is practicing. It's also contemplating its first flight. Which turns out to be even shorter than the adults. Fortunately, young Hotzins can swim. The adults can't. And moonlight, shining on the island of Madagascar, reveals another weird animal full of strange adaptations. It's related to the lemur, but looks like a large cat. It has the ears of a bat, the eyes of an owl, the bushy tail of a squirrel, and the sharp, ever-growing incisor teeth of a beaver. It's the eye, and it's looking for grubs in the rotting wood of the forest. It has an extended third finger with which it taps the bark of trees. It listens for the reverberation and can tell whether there's a hollow below containing any insect larvae. It then bites through the outer layer of bark and uses its specially adapted finger to pull out its prey. Aye-ayes are solitary, nocturnal primates and spend most of the night travelling from tree to tree feeding. Their other major sources of food include fungi and the fruit of certain trees. They have even learnt to use their extra long finger to measure the milk level inside coconuts. Did you know that the woodpecker has a specially hardened and padded skull? It cushions the woodpecker's brain while the bird hammers holes into trees. And did you know that the Gila monster stores fat in its tail? When food is scarce, it breaks down the fat so that its tail becomes smaller and smaller, a bit like a camel's hump. In fact, its tail can almost shrivel away to nothing. One adaptation that almost guarantees a supply of food is to become accustomed to our wasteful human ways and eat what we throw away.
The polar bear can smell a seal, its favorite meal, 20 kilometers away. But this fearsome hunter can also smell human rubbish and has learned that there's often an easier meal to be found in a Canadian garbage tip. The red fox also knows how to exploit our extravagance and is perfectly at home in a British rubbish heap. Foxes have made such a success of city living that you can look out of your window in central London and see a fox trotting up the street. Even the bustling streets of Hong Kong, a city that never sleeps, have their own wildlife. Crab-eating macaque monkeys rarely bother with their natural diet these days. Instead, they exploit the 6 million citizens of Hong Kong and help themselves to whatever's going. They're shameless, streetwise beggars. They've absolutely no fear of humans. Nor of the thundering traffic that never stops. monkey's natural habitat is the forested peaks on which Hong Kong is built. And there's another creature that's always lived amongst these hills. But now it glides through the flight path of incoming jets and uses the uprising thermals from the man-made canyons of the city's skyscrapers. The black kite has a lighter weight frame than other scavenging birds, and is able to make use of the gentle early morning thermals to get to the food sources first. Its natural diet consists of fish, frogs, mice and insects. Now it feeds amongst the city's rubbish dumps, and instead of utilizing the cliffs, has adapted to nesting on the skyscrapers themselves, using paper and plastic picked up in the streets. Hong Kong's high-rise buildings may have 50 stories or more. But the level grasslands of Africa are also divided into different layers, and various animals have adapted themselves to living there.
This is the dik-dik, one of the smaller members of the antelope family, and it's not much bigger than a hare. Shy and nervous, it feeds on the lowest level, grasses and bushes close to the ground. Way beyond its reach are the leaves of the acacia, one of the few trees that grow on the African savanna. And the animal that has adapted itself to eating these is the giraffe. The giraffe is the world's tallest land animal, and they can grow nearly 9 meters high. Although they have the same number of neck vertebrae as most mammals, 7, they're greatly elongated, and the giraffe avoids competition by browsing on the highest branches. They also avoid competition between the sexes, with the females feeding at a lower level than the males. They wind their long tongues between the acacia thorns, and they have a special muscle on their lips which is puncture-proof. They're also beautifully camouflaged. Like zebra, giraffe lead a nomadic life, following the unpredictable rains and searching out any fresh growth of leaves they can find. Avoiding competition for this scarce food by feeding on the intermediate layer of acacia, too high for the dik-dik and too low for the giraffe, is the gerenuk, another well-adapted niche feeder, which also has a thorn-proof mouth. The gerenuk, which resembles a gazelle, doesn't eat grass, and so it sometimes stands on its hind legs, stretching its neck to reach the higher leaves, hence its nickname, the gazelle giraffe. Another useful adaptation on these grasslands, where the rainfall is sporadic, is the gerenuk's ability to extract all the moisture it needs from the plants it eats. This means it doesn't have to visit the waterholes where the predators often wait. Did you know that giraffes have special valves in the blood vessels of their neck? These valves stop the blood rushing to their heads while they're drinking and prevent them from fainting. And did you know that the African lungfish buries itself in the mud when the river dries out? As its name implies, it has lungs. Most fish don't, and it breathes the air trapped in the mud. It can survive like that for 4 years. Finally, a day in the life of a wildlife cameraman.
With a wave of his hand, Graham McFarlane says goodbye to the supply boat that's brought him to Dasson Island, 7 kilometres off the Cape Coast in South Africa. But our modern-day castaway is not entirely alone. With every step he takes, the local wildlife is aware of him. Jackass penguins live only in South Africa, and Dasson Island is an excellent place to film them. This one has found some shelter under the wooden jetty. The rest of the colony are on a beach not far away. Filming wildlife often entails sleeping in a tent for months on end. But on Dasson Island, Graham can live in a certain amount of luxury. There's no electricity or fresh water, but there is a small cottage which he can make his own. It was once living quarters for prisoners sent to the island to collect the bird droppings which were used as a fertilizer. In the morning, he sets out on his first recce. The southeast wind howls in these latitudes, and this penguin has taken shelter under the specialized succulent plants that have adapted to the island's sandy shores. Guinea fowl were brought here from Robben Island, 20 kilometers to the south, where Nelson Mandela was a political prisoner. And another inhabitant of Dasson Island is the angulated tortoise, introduced from the mainland. Crouched amongst the arum lilies, Graham's able to film their robust mating rituals as the males compete for mates. The wind off the sea is cold. Some of the plants are sharp and prickly, and Graham needs to wear his camouflage jacket. There's a lighthouse keeper living on the island, and although the water looks inviting, you won't find him swimming here. The surface current comes straight from the Antarctic. It's freezing cold. But not enough to deter our intrepid cameraman. The penguins, of course, love these icy waters. Their eggs were once collected and eaten by humans, and it's estimated that the population fell from 400,000 in the 1920s to only 25,000 in the early 1990s. But the island is now a nature reserve. The egg collection has stopped, and the population has stabilized. The penguins have no natural predators on the island, and now that we have adapted our ways and stopped preying on them, there's no reason why they shouldn't thrive.